Hey everyone, I'm in my garden today and it is a hot one. It's about high 30s, mid 30s in Celsius, so that's probably close to 90 in Fahrenheit. It's been really hot around here. And I'm growing peas in the garden, and we had a really cold spring and a slow start. So these peas got planted in the garden. Actually, they got transplanted to the garden in early April, and I had started them in March. So these peas are still here, and they're just starting to fruit, and they've been in this bed now. Now we're into July, so July the 4th today, and I'm finally starting to see some fruit development. So it's been months and months. Now typically the peas would probably be done by now. I'd be planting them in early April, even from seed directly in the garden, and they would give me a crop by June. So we are about a month behind. But I wanted to show you, for anyone new to gardening or new to growing peas, a little bit of information about how to know when your peas are ready for harvest, and as well as the best way to harvest them to prevent the vine from ripping down and or being damaged. So let me show you what I do. So this is a bed of shelling peas, as you can see here. Now this is a mid-season variety, so they have peas are available in early season, mid-season, and late season peas. These are about mid-season peas, so in a typical year you'd be harvesting them towards I would say early June, late May, depending on where you live, if it's springtime. So like I mentioned, we're about a month behind, but they are starting to crop. So I want to show you what to do and how to tell. So this looks like a mid-height type of variety. I do have another one growing right behind it, and as you can see, it's a lot taller, and it's just starting to fruit, and the peas are not filled out yet. So I'm growing shelling peas. Now shelling peas are the ones that you need to shell for the green pea on the inside. You can also purchase snap peas, where you would eat the entire pod with the peas inside, and the shell would fill out and you would eat the whole thing. And there's no string typically on a snap pea, so you can actually snap it, and that's why it's called a snap pea. And the whole thing is nice and juicy and crispy, and you can either eat it raw or you can saute it or what have you. And then there's also a snow pea. Snow peas are flat peas. They don't fill out on the inside. If they were to fill out, that means they're going to seed and they wouldn't be edible. So a snap pea would look like this, even though this is not a snap pea, and it's nice and flat. So, but these are shelling peas. And so how can you tell when a shelling pea is ready for harvest? Well, I'll show you some examples. So a shelling pea is ready when the pods on the little peas on the inside of the pod have filled out. Not when as well, the pod needs to be green and juicy. If it's starting to yellow, then the peas on the inside are drying, and they wouldn't be very good for fresh pea eating. So in that case, you'd want to save them and have them as dry peas, and maybe keep them in soup or save them for seed. So I'm looking to harvest my peas when they're green on the inside and not too woody, not too mature, yet have filled out just right. So let me give you an example, and I hope you can see, because it's quite a bright day today. So let's see here. Here's my patch of peas, as you can see, and there's different types of peas here, different stages of development. Here's one that's starting to fill in. Here's one that isn't quite there yet, also starting to fill in. Here's two. Now if you look at this one here, you can see that this one here is starting to fill out, and this one here is almost ready. Now they could both be harvested, but I think I'm going to wait an extra day on this one, and I'm going to harvest this one. So the best way to harvest it, now my hand is unfortunately taken, but typically you'd put one hand over here on this little stem and one hand over here to hold it, and you would hold one to keep the vine from ripping, and you would pull with the other. So, but I'm going to use my one hand to show you how it's done. So there you go. Okay, so here's my harvested pea. Now it's just about right. You could start to see that there's the pods have filled in. The peas have filled in on the inside of the pod. You can actually see their actual, you can see them through the skin. It's still nice and green and crispy. And then of course to harvest it, now again I only have one hand, but you would pop it open like this, and you can see them on the inside to see how big they are. One second here. Okay. Now this could have stayed in the garden for another day or two and they would have filled out a bit more, but it has been really, really hot and really dry here, and unless you're watering all the time, they need water to fill in. So I'm going to harvest them now. I did give the vines a really good watering, and I'm hoping that that will help to continue to grow these vines and to fill out the peas, but I'm trying to make do with what I have. So I did harvest it a little bit earlier than it could have gone a little bit longer, but then these are still very juicy and sweet. So I'm going to try one. Again, I'm working with one hand. So I'm going to try one pea. There it is. And that is very sweet, very juicy. I can't remember the variety because I'm growing a number of them. I started very many varieties this year, and they didn't all grow, so I just kept starting more and more, and I even seeded some directly in the garden. So I'm not sure which one this is. It could be a Lincoln shelling pea, although I'm not too sure, but it's very sweet. I found another one here, which I think is a little bit more advanced. I'm going to take it off. Let's see if you could see me here. So it's this one here. It's nice and full. I'm going to use one hand, but typically I suggest two, especially for the beginning. And there it is, right there. I'm going to open it up, see what it looks like. And there it is. So these are slightly bigger than the last ones I've harvested. Let's see if it's the same or bigger. So these are the two. And I believe they're about the same size on the inside. And I'm going to try one because it's so much fun to try peas straight off the vine. It's very sweet. So if you haven't grown peas before, I highly recommend it. Also, it's summer here in July and it's hot and they're still growing. So for anyone that thinks that peas can only be grown when it's cool outside, that's a misconception. They definitely can grow in the heat of summer as long as they're started at the right time and you get them in the garden and you give them enough water, they will grow for you. Eventually they will expire. These vines are all green and healthy. They're not drying at all, so they're definitely in growth right now, and they definitely have a long way to go before they're completed. And especially since the vine is still climbing, it's still growing, as you can see here, it's still climbing. There's going to be more coming up these bamboo stakes. And then they'll continue to produce more fruit. Now be sure you harvest your peas on a regular basis. If you leave them on the vine, they will think that it's time to produce seed and they will stop producing new pods as they mature. The existing pods, those will go to seed, they will dry. And once a plant begins to do that, it stops making more fruit because it knows that now it's made seed. The genetic line will continue and there's no reason to continue producing more. So you definitely want to keep harvesting your peas throughout the growing season. As long as you keep harvesting them, they'll keep producing seeds for you. You can either start your peas indoors in a seed tray. I recommend longer ones. Even toilet paper rolls are successful at producing healthy plants as long as you keep them watered. Or you can use root trainers or any kind of long seed trays. That would work well for the roots. So start them indoors if you'd like to get yourself a head start. Plant them out in early spring as soon as the soil could be worked. Where I live, I'm in zone 5A, 5B, right on the border. And they will happily be planted in early April as long as there's no ice or snow on the ground. I get mine in, and if there is risk of frost, that's okay too because they can really handle it. They're quite hardy. In the same respect, you can grow them in the fall. They don't mind a mild frost, so get your peas in the ground. I would suggest in August, and you can start them indoors again under grow lights, or you can plant them directly in the ground. Make sure you plant them in August because they do need some weeks to get established, and then your peas will produce for you into the fall. And depending on where you live and when your final frost date is, you could be eating shelling peas, or if you have a really short season and you get a deep frost early on. In our case, September 30th, October 1st is our first frost date, so we're okay for a while. But if you can't actually get your pea plants to produce pea pods in the fall, then definitely feel free to harvest the pea shoots. They're delicious. So these things here, when they start to grow, if you don't actually get pods, feel free to nip these off. and you can add them directly to salads and eat them raw, or you can saute them or add them to a stir fry or put them in a soup, or there's just so many options. So that's how to grow peas. That's my recommendation. Be sure to give them water. If it's raining, then and you get a lot of rain in your spring season, then you might not need to water as much. Just check the soil. If your pea plants are starting to yellow at the bottom, it's typically because they haven't had enough water. So just make sure you water them. You give them a deep soaking at least twice a week. 2 inches of water a week would be great. And if you're unsure if the soil is wet, insert your finger into the soil, do a finger test to the second knuckle, push it into the soil, and if you feel moist soil at the tip of your finger, your soil is wet enough. If it's dry, then give it a good watering. And that's my tip for shelling peas. Hope you all have a great day. Happy gardening, and I look forward to talking to you all again soon. Bye for now.